selecting this because I'm going to plan lessons for the fall, and these activities will be developed with you in the fall. But what's going to be the work, and that's part of the work why we're here 3 days, is because we're going to take their ideas and start categorizing them. So that will help drive the development of the learning based upon where they are. Because oftentimes right now, what do you often do? You might do a exploration type of activity to get a hook, but there may not be the same level of sense making at that moment. And we may leave them from that experience not really knowing what's in their head. And then from there, then we start that constructing and negotiating, which is the teaching and learning. But it's based upon some of the categories of understanding that the children have.
So it's almost like a pre-assessment, but with an exploration activity. So using a task, we're pretty much seeing, okay, well, where is their understanding as opposed to maybe pen and paper.
You could think of it like that, not quite as formalized,
Right.
but you really are trying to get an understanding of where the children are. I guess if I were to say anything close to it, more of a formative, so that you're trying to garner where the children are in terms of their level of understanding.
What if you have a student
And
who knows a little bit about literature?
That's fine.
And they
That's
start
fine.
bringing in that terminology, the vocabulary, the words like potential entity. Can I actually elaborate on that?
All those can be written on the board or wherever you're
Or
talking.
you said you can't, okay.
Anything that the children say, doesn't matter what state they're at, what level they're at, doesn't matter.
Okay.
And when you put all those ideas, and students will know that you are teaching from their ideas. One other thing I want to remind you is, have students draw their pictures on the board when they are sharing. Have students draw their pictures on the board. Let them draw it on their sheets of paper. This is where Elmo comes.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll also have students draw those pictures on the board.
If they wish. Yeah. And in this,
Encourage them.
absolutely. And in this environment, I can't guarantee what's in those classrooms for you to engage with.
So
So,
they'll be excited.
yeah, there probably will be a whiteboard, and if there is, I invite you to, if the teacher has, and we don't want to destroy her or his environment, but at least get them to draw it on their papers, and we can try and make sure that we do a little something if possible. But you know that when you have your own classroom, that is to be encouraged. Because again, it's that efficacy of the children, and we don't want to destroy anything that causes them to pull back and to not share what's inside of them as we're learning where they are so we can move forward. And I say this so strongly because we're dealing with children with a lot of different backgrounds and experiences. It's not like some communities where everybody's on a farm and everybody does the same thing, and it builds like that. Our kids are coming from a rich background, and we want to just make sure that we hear and know and use that as we're teaching.
Yeah. Just a little bit of the nature of science. Nature of science, scientists are always exploring their ideas. They may not talk it out, but they're always drawing pictures, drawing models, thinking about it. That's what they're doing, and we want to emulate that practice. Teachers are the ambassadors, or diplomats, for the scientific community, and we want to portray that scientific in our classroom. And you think about it like this: scientists always have research associates, and they're working together. That's a kind of relationship I like for you to build. That's one point. Second point is we are exploring with some activities and all that. What do scientists do? That's what they do, right? They're experimenting, trying out their ideas. And the third thing is think about the term tentative. All right, tentative. Science is tentative. That means we are bringing a metaphor from the scientific community to our classroom community. Scientists took years and years, sometimes thousands of years, to figure out certain things. What dissolving means took more than 1,000 years by so many scientists. So, but our classroom, we don't have that time. So, we will just use it as a metaphor to explore their ideas, have them, and then in subsequent lessons like constructing and negotiating, what we are trying to do is have them change their conceptions to scientific models. So that's why we call our model perceptual change model. It's not just getting perceptual. We're trying to establish the scientific community, the elements, the standards, the practices. And your NJSS, going back to that, it talks about what does NJSS say? Scientific practices. That's right. It's not scientific inquiry anymore, like the 1996 standards. The 1996 standards focused on the inquiry, focused on the scientific inquiry. Here we are, bring all the practices of science.
Taking it to a much deeper, richer, broader understanding that replicates what real science and scientists engage in. Said something and I wanted to comment on it and just slipped my mind. We'll come back.
Is it about tentative nature of science?
No, it was about, yes, the tentative nature of science, but just the reality that our children, even though they may have not articulated it, they are coming with a lot of ideas. Mm-hmm. And when you engage, I'll never, we all have many experiences. And that's the reason we have to listen and have them to document, because it would not surprise me if we were studying earth science and some children said that I'm just going to keep walking and I'll walk off. Because if they don't have experiences, they don't know. And so those are the things that we have to, as she's saying, have their ideas and conceptions so that we can help facilitate the change that is needed by modeling what we know to be the behaviors and activities of real science.
We even call them children's theories.
Their theories.
Yeah, theories. Yeah. Like scientists say. Exciting, right?
Sure.
I'm thinking about the light bulb experiment. I know at our table yesterday for a while, they put like what happens if nobody gets that point? And what happens if none of them actually, because that was like the one experiment where you had that one goal to get that light bulb to go. It wasn't a solution, it wasn't like that. And suppose that how many kids would do, let's say they don't get it. What point where do you go with that? They don't
You know what?
because they really want it to light up. You eventually show them how to light it up.
No, you don't do that.
That's
This point, just get their ideas. You could ask, why didn't it like that? Questions like that.
Right, and I think that
Give any answers.
at that point,
It's premature.
at that point, but at the sharing time, that would be more appropriate for them to hear other students share their ideas.
Other students
And
share
that's
their
where
ideas is
it
fine.
would be illuminated for them.
Yeah, but you yourself don't teach.
right. That's fine.
Other students, that's fine.
Okay.
And you know what, it will be good to give them some pages to maybe.
We may not have
You
enough
don't
tape
have
right
all,
now.
even, maybe you can suggest that they can find that flyer around that. I think that's okay.
And then the end of the exploration part, because I think we're all sort of used to wrapping it up and making it make
Some
sense.
closure.
Yes, that's what I was
How do you finish? Like, what do you just, okay, great ideas, guys.
We're going to take this data and roll out a great science program in the fall.
This group in particular, and I said that yesterday, that I knew it would be a challenge because we're not moving forward with teaching. And for these children, I think the summarization, the explanation at the end, where they hear other children's ideas and where they see other children's examples and models of how they got the light to light, or some things with the mixtures, the invisible versus visible. But I think the only fairest thing, And I'm not about misleading children, really. It's about telling them that we are using this experience to learn and how to prepare for the fall and the teaching and learning for the fall. And so that's a truthful statement. And from there, that hopefully will give them a little bit of excitement to look for one of you in their school in the fall. And that's any other thoughts,
Well,
suggestions?
I wanted to say we have to move away in some aspects from children having things be so concrete, either right or wrong. And sometimes that's what they're looking for when you bring closure to it, because then you're saying, well, you had a good idea, but you really didn't, Bethany. Yours was right, Sue, but yours was wrong, Bethany. And that leaves children feeling afraid to take risks and to go out and do things and they share their thoughts and their feelings. But if you just leave it with, those were some great ideas, we can explore them further, or something along those lines. No one's right and no one's wrong.
And I will also add, she's absolutely correct with that. The one thing that I feel they can leave with from this experience is the experience of making predictions, the experience of collecting observations, the experience of having an explanation of their idea. That is what scientists do.
And the inquiry. Each time they do something, it should leave them with more questions, because the questioning is one of the things we're looking for too.
Their ability to think and to question is something that is an outburst of that. Does that help you, Catherine? Okay. And I think that is really what we are trying to do, is to engage your children to be thinkers by their questioning, their observations, and all of that. Okay. Any other questions at this one? Because those were both very good. Okay. Yeah.
At the end, when they're discussing, giving their explanations and we're sharing, you had mentioned that, everybody gets an opportunity to share it, but can we explore it further if maybe some kids are going, oh, hey, all of a sudden the light bulb comes on, can you explore that further, let them keep going with it then, or do you
You can
still...
explore, but not giving access.
Right.
You can explore.
But if they glean ideas from other groups and then they want to try it
Yeah.
from an idea based on this group, they can try it.
Like, that's fine. Look at this paper now, the way she has represented knowledge with arrows. So the question is, how do students generate knowledge? How do they represent knowledge? How do they validate their knowledge? Generating knowledge is, on their own or with other students, and how they represent knowledge and this with arrows. That's beautiful, right? Arrows. Some others might put dots, some others might put dash. Who knows what, right? And how do they validate their knowledge? When they're sharing and they're coming together, and then you yourself are placing your ideas, teachers' ideas along with students. Friends' ideas and all this.
I just wanted to also add, for your understanding, I didn't collect your prediction sheets yesterday, but I will be collecting student observation and prediction sheets today. And what we're going to do, we're not going to act on that right now, but what I'm going to do is make copies of all of those predictions and their sheets. And tomorrow we'll be looking at that. So I'll be making a copy for each of the 4 different groups, or however we do it. Those who are working on that, I will make it all for all of you, because the goal here is that most of you will be teaching 4th and 5th grade. And so the goal is that you need to see how are we looking at their ideas and then categorizing those ideas into meaningful strands that are aligned to the goal or our cut of our particular lessons that we're going to start to develop. And they're developed according to what we have as our performance expectations, and the cut, that understanding that we want to drive, and those learning activities that you all know are important as we develop these learning outcomes for the children. That's part of the work for tomorrow. And because when we leave from our work tomorrow, the goal is that each of you will have a little chunk. Each group will have a little chunk that you'll be working on, that you will be able to share and provide ideas. Just like I was sharing with Marva, she brought in some aligned materials and activities to the current resources that we have that are aligned to NGSS. That's a good starting place to look at that and to see, are any of those rich enough activities? And so what I'm going to do, each of you will have, and I said it yesterday, but the more I say it and the closer we get to doing it, you'll start to understand. Each of you will have a little chunk, and we'll make sure it's in our Google Classroom. Each of group will have rights. So I'm going to use Marva and Tina as an example. Marva and Tina will have rights to edit, write, all of that with that one chunk of a lesson. The three of you will have rights to a chunk. The two of you will have rights to a chunk. The two of you will have rights to edit and to write. But as a collected group, we'll all be able to see the ideas that you're generating. We won't be able to get into the lesson and write and edit, but we'll be able to say, hey, Marva, this is another idea. Think about this for the lesson because I saw this in the lines. You'll be able to view and comment. Does that make sense? And that's the richness there that I see that can help empower our collaborative work, because I really know how I understand this work, and I understand that I understand the power of planning for instruction. I wouldn't say it, I wouldn't ask it if I didn't know. I know how important it is for someone to have a lens into the content that you're doing. And it just so happened that many times as I was a teacher, it was just a blessing for me that some of my administrators were also very good science individuals. And so they would always, and I say because people don't believe that my lesson plans didn't have computers back then, but I wrote them out. And I took the time to write them out. And my principal would go through with a red pen, writing questions. And it was a blessing for me because my principal was not a manager. She was a very good manager, but she was an instructional leader. And there's a significant difference. Principals today need to be both. But that's the richness of the planning. And so when I share with you that at the era that U of M was in my classroom, I had to learn how to be that facilitator and not the sage. And the facilitator, in order for you to step back and let the kids do it, it requires planning, thoughtfulness. How are we grouping the kids? Bringing on the richness of what we've learned about flexible grouping and all these things that are just good practices for teachers. That's the knowledge many of you already have. But it's just about planning for these activities and this type of thinking. And so I just want you to know that I know it's hard work, and so I need each of you to have a part in it. Collectively, we will share, and collectively, we will implement. So it takes some of the burden off of you individually, and that's what I was hoping to achieve by having us work as a small cohort of elementary science teachers. And actually, you will learn, you will grow, you will add, but the backbone and the framework of it is where your peers will be there for you.
And your writing also makes you think.
Yes, it does.
Do students know how to use the Google? Do students know how to use it?
Some will.
Some will. Some teachers have already worked at setting up Google Classrooms.
It'd be nice
And
to-
so, yeah, that is a good way so that you can even see their writing, their thinking. But at this moment, our Google Classroom is not for the children, it is for our teachers. Thoughts on any of that? All right then. So I think at this moment, we're ready to go into the classrooms. Fourth grade classrooms, fourth grade groups again? Okay, 1 and 2. And so we were going to have some children to lead us down to